Welcome back, everyone. I think a few people are still at the back of the room. For the second panel, which will look at the interplay between the construction of an author's artistic identity and the development of new writing, I'd like to welcome on stage Delphine Lanson, Claudio Stellato, Antonia Kuzmanić. Thank you for your great implication in this European Day of Conferences. And Agathe Dumont, moderator.
Okay, so welcome back, everyone. So this roundtable will be in English, and if needed, sometimes we can also speak French, because our wonderful translator in the back can do both languages. And we can also speak Italian, Catalan, whatever you want. So I'm very happy to have a discussion with those three wonderful artists. And of course, we will also talk about your different roles as pedagogues, presenters, festival programmers, but also a mentor. So we will not only talk about artistic work, but also perhaps about pedagogies, about how we work at large. We will also try to discuss about opening new ways to question our responsibility also as artists to, as I said in the introduction, kind of move borders. How do we take care also of our artistic pathways, raising question on our training, but also raising question about where do we come from and how this influence also how do we work, and also a lot of question around this and how all the context of working, but how what I call our constellation, where we come from, have also an influence on how we can develop what we could call new writings. Perhaps it will be also a question about how do we learn, how do we have learned, but also how we unlearn to construct, to build something different. And as an introduction, I just wanted to share a short text that does not come from the circus field, but I think still it's very interesting to hear it. It comes from the visual art sector. So I teach now in the visual art sector, so now I share references from the visual art sector. And it's in a book that is called Uncertain Patterns, Motifs Incertains in French. And it's a collective book written by the collective Micro-Sillon, which is a very politically engaged Swiss collective, which was in charge of the master trends at the Fine Art School in Geneva in Switzerland. And I'm going to read it in English and then in French. So it's the break for the translators. Uncertainty is our best support for both action and imagining the future. It's a quote by Anne Snitow. We are living in a time of multiple uncertainties, and as Edgar Morin remarked, when thinking about the knowledge needed to educate for the future, if before the 20th century we believed in a future that was either repetitive or progressive, we have now discovered the loss of the future, that is, it is unpredictability. For Derrida, so only French philosophers, we are in the time of the maybe, and we have to let what was it to come, something that announces itself as impossible and which is unrepeatable. In this way, the emergence of a possible novelties, donc for Paulo Freire, a great pedagogue and thinker about pedagogy, previously unimaginable action that can be realized is made conceivable. Patterns, both in their form and in their repetition, become uncertain. This dialogical approach to pedagogy and art requires the teacher and the artist to develop a certain state of mind of ignorance to put themselves in a certain position of vulnerability. So this is for our introduction. So possible, impossible, uncertainty. We're gonna move around this also, talking about your work and where you come from and how do you work now. And perhaps to start the discussion, Delphine, you shared a video that was, I think, interesting to share. So it's a very short video. Perhaps do you want to say a few words to introduce it, or after? After. Okay. C'est pas celle-là, c'est celle-là. This one.
Nou, dat was het dan. Nee, zo ziet het dus. Als je natuurlijk met de zon hebt, als er een wolk is, dan maakt zo'n wolk zijn eigen schaduwen. Waardoor het een zeer prachtige, plastische, echte wolk wordt. Dat is super, super gaaf.
So perhaps you could tell us what you, well, if you wish, where do those images come from, and perhaps also how they relate for you to our conversation.
Yes, hi everyone. Thank you for the invitation. This artist is a plastician called Berndot Smild. Sorry, it's very difficult to pronounce. Berndot Smild. And we didn't see the beginning of the video, but basically he's documenting something that he's done in several spaces, which is to create clouds indoor. And the reason I chose this video and also not the actual image, because then he makes amazing photos. You can look him up on the internet, like really beautiful pictures, still pictures. But the reason I wanted to show you this video is because the making of this cloud is something quite unique and marvelous, and relates to a lot of things that you said. Is like, how do you make the impossible possible? And in a way, a lot of the circus endeavors that I've seen in many artists try in their own way, whether it is with risk or with a specific relationship with their apparatus or their specific relationship with the topic that they want to. There is something to about the boundaries that you're trying to expand, and how you make yourself into this unique cloud for a moment that you cannot reproduce precisely. So if you were to think about the writing of this moment that we saw, what would make it a specific creator's writing? It's not the cloud itself, because it will change the shape. So what is it? So that's just, I just wanted to open up with that.
Thank you very much. I think it's a very good image that summarizes what we have also talked all together. But perhaps we could start with the idea of the dialogue between different spaces. As we see here, it's kind of a dialogue between two spaces that were not supposed to meet. So we talk about circus, of course, but how perhaps in your practices you explored also different borders, film, visual arts, the different mediums, and how in your practices, artistic practices, did you connect those sectors, those other practices to circus? Can we move away from circus? In what ways? Do we need to reduce circus to a fixed identity, or do we need to explore also this idea of moving boundaries and always moving boundaries to be sure that we are in kind of a making new things possible? I don't know if one of you want to start with this. I know I've talked about it with the three of you, so. Antonia? Allez, let's start with Antonia.
So I can share that like one of the most interesting recent experience I have of this stretching the limits of what is circus and actually finding the inspiration in other places was with a hand-to-hand project that Delphine is also part of it. It's a Creative Europe project that we are finishing now in June. And the idea of how we started, Lepalk is the coordinator of the project, was to bring circus artists in relationship with another sector of work, which is the manufacture and the physical work. So we have identified 4 different industries or sectors. So in Champagne, it's of course production of champagne. In Portugal, it was a production of bacalhau, fish. In Denmark, it was a connection with people that are building ships. And in Croatia, where I work, is the production of salt. And we can share a video, but I can just explain in just a shortly that we did a 2 weeks residency together, working with workers in the salt marshes in this, let's say, wasteland, but it is not waste, it's very populated with different animals and plants, where you produce salt. And it was really an experiment how the workers that has zero information what circus is going to work with 2 female circus artists and what is going to be a product. It's also important to say that the project is not imagined in a way that it has to have a product. It's all about for the artists to experience something completely new, something that probably they will not part in the usual circus journeys they are taking, and how they can keep this experience inside of their body and inside of their artistic language. So in the project, we are not looking for finished performances. We are giving this, we are prototypes, which is kind of little work in progress, but not even this. It's kind of sharing their experience with public. Maybe we take a...
Yeah, perhaps, and after we can also discuss both your experience of the project.
Komt-ie.
Well, thank you for this video. I think that different questions are raised here around how do we create and what is happening. It's about changing space so that it changes the way we work, changing the way we work because we don't have, as you said, a result, a production on stage, let's say, at the end, so where we are in a research process, and perhaps also changing the relationship to what is work in general to people, to potential audiences. I don't know if you want to say something also about this project, perhaps Delphine, the hand-to-hand project. And
so in this project I was an artistic mentor, and so we accompanied with the 4 partners in 4 different countries, 8 artists, into a work of research about the artistic gesture, the workers' gestures, and ecology. So there were 3 main themes going through the whole of the process, which is a 2-year process with short times when everybody met all together, and then times of residencies that were a bit longer for the artists. I'm explaining the context because it matters, because it's always a question of the time you have. And it's very interesting that this question of, it's interesting, the images, I hadn't seen this little video, so it's nice. And also it's interesting what happened specifically in Croatia with Perin, whom you see a lot, is that she totally dove into the relationship with the workers. All the 8 artists are very different, and everybody embodied the research in a very, very different manner. What is really interesting is the right to fail, which was also very contradictory within the artists themselves, because they know they have to show this work in festivals. And a lot of them, throughout the process, expressed the need of time, of slowing down, which is actually the name of the piece of this artist, which is Slow Down. And it was a reflection on the artistic production in general, on the world as the fact that it's going too fast, and that's how she managed to make something out of it, and I suppose that would be really interesting to see how she integrates this work in her body in a few years' time. Also, I think these works of research are so precious, and they're not easy to fund. They're not easy to take the time. But I think it's time we need to take in order to be able to question quite deeply why we are making this work of art. Yeah.
I think the question of the long-term effects is really also very important. And perhaps, I know, Claudio, when we discussed before, no, but I don't know, Antonia, if you add a thing on this project, but for me it opens other question.
One thing I can just say about and maybe Antonia can explain more, is the relationship that there was with the workers and the circus artists. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah,
and I think
you could say a few words about
you'll
it,
speak better about it.
How meeting other ways of working also changed the artistic work. I mean,
it's hard to explain because you have, it's an experience that you really need to be there to see it by yourself, because it's a very small team of only men workers. It's 4 of them plus the director, and they were first very shocked that we actually came in 6 in the morning, and we actually want to do the hard physical work of cleaning the mud from the pool with them. So this was a first really a shock, and they were all very too polite for circus artists. In the mean, they were like, no, it's all, it's dirty, you are all going to be in muddy after we work. Like, you just watch and observe, and then after 30 minutes they were, oh yeah, do it, you bring this there, then you go and there. It was, they really soon realized that we are like colleagues for a couple of days. And then it was really like an social experiment for me, because I was the one speaking Croatian with them, and then I was translating, and then some of them were speaking English with the artists. For me, it was really a journey how long they will take to open up. And then after drinking beers with them in 10 in the morning, because it's a break, they really open up. And then by the 6th day we were friends, and I know all the relationship problems, marriage problem, kids problem, all the problems, political problems. But it was really an amazing experience for me to remind myself who is not my audience and who it will be really great to have them in the audience for the circus. And also to remind me as a producer a role to really nurture these moments of experience for the artist and nurture the moment of risk and exploration and trying something new and really finding a way to have money to do this without the obligation to have a finished product, like a result. And I think actually maybe even because I still work in Croatia and in the region of ex-Yugoslavia, it's even maybe more opportunities to create these experiences because we have less funding, but then because the funding is so small, then we have a little bit more freedom, I will say, in a way. So it was really a great reminder how important it is to unlearn or to give different experiences to the artists and new inspiration moments.
Thank you. Well, drinking beers is always an important part of the artistic process, but it's not the topic of the round table, so we can move on. And it makes me think about a book that it called Work by Stuart Terkel. He was a journalist and he published it in the late 60s, beginning of 70s in the US. And it was translated in French a few years ago, I think. And it's a kind of a repertoire of different people talking about their work. And there are no artists. It's a receptionist, a doctor, a lot of different workers that talk about their work. But in a way, in a lot of those testimonies, it talks about artistic work. So we can see also about how its relationship to work are also complex, and perhaps the meeting other workers is also ways to open. So we see how spaces can change the way we work and artistic kind of results in a way. But there is also perhaps the way we work, the rules that we give ourselves to work. So I know, Claudio, we discussed the idea, and I think Delphine and Antonia, you might also have things to say about this, on when we change the rules of how do we organize work in a residency, in a creative process, it also changes what we see in the final on stage, or perhaps not, if we don't have any results on stage, but perhaps what condition tools can enable a displacement also in our artistic practices, because as artists, we decide also to change the organization of work, or how do we relate to work?
Yeah, I was in a point of my life that I didn't know how to change or to change my results. So I said, well, I don't have very good ideas, for the dossier, this stuff. And I said to myself that maybe I had to change the process and not the idea or the concepts or all these things, no? So in this moment, I'm trying to change the way of how I spend the time in a studio with my colleagues. All the rules, or the fact that maybe I have to be the animator of the day. So to destroy all these kind of rules, I'm thinking that if I change how I'm using the time, maybe the results will change automatically. So we have I don't know, we try some stuff when we work. We are together, maybe we don't meet each other for all the weeks, but we are in the same place, we can work everywhere, we can be used by everybody in the space when everybody wants. At the end of the week or 2 weeks, maybe we don't have nothing and it's okay, it's very good. Also, we are in this aptitude of nothing is very good. Yeah. Of course, if we work in this way, you need a lot of time, because more nothing is nothing. It's an I'm experimenting. I cannot tell you what it will be the results. We will see. Yeah, I was asking also what I do in my free time. No, if I change what I do in my free time, maybe I will change as a human being. So.
Oh, big project.
Oh yeah, but and for this reason, I try to apply these rules in what I do in my life to destroy all what we learn from other choreographer and way of working and all this story. You know, you create a kind of routine even if you don't want. So maybe by destroying the routine, and about the space is also important. This I did in the past. When I was bored about the indoor, I start to work in the nature because the scenography changed a lot there. When I was bored about outdoor, I tried to learn with workers. Because the place where I work modify my mind. So, for example, black walls are not very inspiring. I mean, but sometimes you need these black walls or place like this. And it's true that if you take something that works outdoor, you bring indoor, you don't change nothing. It's the same thing, but the thing become art. No, this morning I was in the metro in Paris coming here, and I saw very good stuff. That you take it as it is and you put it just here, and it's impressive art. You just take it and you put it here. You don't need to work a lot. You copy. You copy the metro Paris.
New ways of working. So no, but I think perhaps Delphine also you could share with us the different ways you worked with Circus, through Circus,
yes,
against Circus, perhaps. That's how.
Or against Circus? No, I love Circus too much.
No, but in the idea of also experiencing Circus through different ways of creating, through different medias, also.
Yes, I think I will share something a bit broader about attitude, which relates also to what Claudio is saying. Is I think I try in my life to always be enough of a beginner. So I will always make myself uncomfortable, not in a sadistic way, but more in I will take new risks. And I think that is why I fell into Circus, because this notion of risking and coming anew, I find vivid and alive in most of the Circus, not all the time, because sometimes Circus can also be very conventional. And that's where maybe I go against Circus in that case, and then I go and travel somewhere else. I try to become a dancer at 45, and maybe I come back to Circus and I will walk on a line with Olivier de Belloir at 5 meters high, which I've never done before. So I try to put myself at risk, not in danger, but at risk. This is very concrete and physical, but literally sometimes it goes into plastic arts and transformation and becoming, working on being an animal. I mean, this is very varied, but that's my life as a performer, I mean. But also as a creator, I always try to make my gaze new. So I will really, there's one word I really like in French, I don't know whether it's the same in English, it's perlaboration, perlaborating, which in a way is similar and different from what you were saying, Claudio, which is working around. So sometimes we try to work on the thing itself, and we cannot, we hit walls, we're trying to make it perfect with everything that we know how to do. And then we forget, and we are new to what we're doing. We don't know what's going to happen, and something happens. And so, for instance, sometimes it can be doing some water paint, or going for a walk, or cutting images, or doing something completely different, meeting workers, talking to someone in the tube. I mean, I don't know, it's very possible to go in different ways. And then how do you frame this so that it becomes something that you want to share? And then we'll speak about the sharing and the audience later, because for me that's a very important notion, is how you share with an audience, because you don't make art just for yourself, you make it to share. But this we'll talk later.
Yeah, perhaps before coming, of course we will come to this question of making all what we're talking about visible, because this is also the goal of creating art forms. But perhaps on this idea of, you talked about working around, I think the image is working around, travailler autour. I think this image is very interesting. We also talked, I know, with Antonia on how, okay, we can have sometimes some radical experiments, some experimentation, but how are they accompanied by the ecosystem, by the outside world or not? Should there be, or it's a tension between, are we kind of are we an experimental form that are alternative, also in the way they create, they work, they share things, etc. Or it's different. We said with Antonia, it's different. There is a difference between becoming institutionalized when we are in more experimental approaches, and having an accompaniment that follow kind of new rules that we try to build. I don't know if you want to discuss also, because you have a role as an artist, but you're also a presenter, or you're also you are a jury for Circus Next, for example, so you also sometimes accompany artistic works.
When we had the discussion preparing this meeting, I was thinking about that I feel that coming from this region that is on the periphery of Circus, which is the southeast of Europe, of Balkan, I don't know how we want to call it. I think it's not only talking about Roman 100 practice, it's about also the other collaborators like Circorama, Jadranka is here, and people from Belgrade, that we actually, the starting point, it's kind of creating utopia for circus artists. And then trying to figure out actually what is possible in the frame that we are giving from this region, like how we can be very flexible with the funding that we are having, and also really accompanying artists and not giving them enough freedom to do what they want, but also making sure that we don't lose the funding, because we are the pillars of developing circus in this region. But I really think that maybe these three organizations really have this basic rule that is even unwritten and unsaid between us and unspoken, that we really want to have this utopia world for the circus artists to emerge and to create and to explore why they are actually circus artists and what they want to share. And I think this is something that we should all keep in mind, that it's great to have big funding, but I think there is a danger of being too much institutionalized, I think is the English word, and there is a bit of losing the freedom. I can give an example of my Laika, which we shared the journey of Circus Next. They were also the laureates in 2010. For me, they are a well-known French company. I don't know if you share this experience, but they managed to really keep this punk universe they have, this really being provocative, radical, always doing something new, but also being able to live from circus art, being able to tour. And every time I see them, it's the same team. I mean, there is a new person, but the core of the company is the same. I see the relationship there, I see them growing, and every time I'm amazed by what they are bringing to the stage. And for me, they are a really good example how you can still be alternative, but also part of the game.
Yeah. But you were also saying, Claudio, when we discussed that being out of a format was not that easy. You said to me, if you are out of format, it requires a maximum of personal strengths and a lot of much more implication, more time, more space. So it's not that easy also to be in those spaces.
I agree with Antonia. Yeah.
Good point.
It's tricky, because it's true that less money, more freedom. But we can also say more money, no, more research. But with money, you want a result that day, and not the day that I will be ready. You want the results that day with money. So it's tricky, because when you have a deadline, you already are thinking to the deadline. You have to be ready that day. You will be not ready when you will be ready. Less money you have, more you have to suffer. No, it's true. You have to be ready to, like my Leica, to build your tent, put down your tent, bring it there, work, not paid, because it's tricky, but in this sector, the freedom brings you to work a lot for free. But it's true that in research, in medicine or in things, there is money for the research that brings to new results. So, do we have the same amount of money of a big pharma enterprise or Coca-Cola? I don't know. To search for a new... There, the money is good money. So with the less than that we have, we try to do things, but it's a lot on our free time, I think, the pure research. And this is also selective, because there is people that has the strength to stay there, and people not, and this is not okay.
Yeah, and you also said that if I want to do a performance in the wood and not in the stage, it's all the time and the work that is needed to do this will be the artist will hold everything, because this movement, this displacement is not that much accompanied by the institutions.
Yeah, in this moment, I was with schools in the last 2 years, and young people they tell me a lot that they want to perform in unusual spaces, destroy the frontal form, and perform in old industries. But the organization that invite them is not ready to put all the money that will transform this place in a security place for the audience. Of course, they don't know that, in fact, to be unusual costs a lot of money, in fact.
This can be the...
But if you give your free time and you are ready to be there instead of the technician of the place and build everything yourself, you will do it. It's a reality that you can destroy the form, but in fact you want a stage. You want to destroy the form, but I want the audience with the super view. I want to destroy the space, but I want LED lights that move electronically. No, it's not. No. So if you destroy the space, you won't destroy the rules. You have to destroy also your. Also your expectation. Yeah.
This is called a revolution.
No.
No.
It's.
No, I don't.
There is a gap now between what you study in school and what and the day after the 1st of July.
Yeah.
Voilà, there is a 30th of June and this 1st of July.
Well, but it was also what I was saying in the introduction. How can we learn uncertainty? And we don't learn uncertainty in schools, in art schools in general, no? And specifically in circus schools.
Yeah.
perhaps. Delphine, you wanted to add something?
No, I say take the money and run. So no, I mean that in a nice way. I mean, I mean, make everything you research. Like, if people are not used to see research, then let's learn together or unlearn together how we can watch research, how we can watch things that are unfinished. It's difficult. I mean, we saw it in the hand-to-hand project. We are constantly challenged with people's expectations, the artists' expectations, the venues' expectations, the audience's expectations, the possibilities, the impossibilities. It's a lot of factors. Same thing with the schools. And as for uncertainty, I mean, I'm sorry, we are in an impermanent world. It's a fact. So, and it's about the money. Money is going to run out anyway. We know that now. At the moment, in France, we're going ahead towards a crisis. So how do we make that an instrument for more creativity, more solidarity, and be bold, audacious, and try things out that we have never tried before? But I don't think we should only, I mean, but I think we should strive to get enough money to be able to live well. I don't think we should just be the syndrome of the poor artist. I think we should ask for the money and not be comfortable with the money and try to communicate with the people who are making with us, like venues, all collaborators. How do we work together to be creative together? Producers, artists, venues can also be creative in what they offer to us artists.
I don't know if you want to add something, Antonia, on what has been discussed, or because I wanted to share a video because I think it's an illustration of what we are saying. It's a film that I like a lot by Sylvain Prunenek, who is a French choreographer. It's called 48e Parallèle, 48th Parallel. And he explored the line around the Earth, 48e Parallèle. And the film is only about him walking and exploring this space and being basically lost in this space. And it's a film by Sophie Lally and Ryan Kernos for the sound creation. And it's a dance film, I think. I'm not sure. I don't know what it is. But it's just a man walking in a big space and just exploring by walking this space. And it's for me kind of a metaphor also of being kind of lost in a space and
fouetter torse, nuque, tête avec un léger et régulier mouvement de l'avant-bras.
And then there is the stage version where he performs what he has experienced in this space on stage based on his sensations.
Des escadrilles de moustiques agressifs, intrépides et sournois attaquent.
Sorry, I don't want to. Well, I will not show it the entire video, but the installation is beautiful. We have a 4-screen installation with different images, and he really took time. I think he went to explore this space for 3 or 4 months, and then he came back and said, "Okay, now I have to do something on stage." And interesting because I did when we saw the images of the film and what we see on stage, it's quite different. And I think the process of being lost in the landscape for 3 months, it's perhaps much more interesting than the piece on stage in a way. So I don't know if you have to phrase any reflection, or also perhaps it opens the question of how do we share a long-term process? How do we share experimental processes? You say in the hand-to-hand project there is no results. So basically the documentation of the project is perhaps those type of videos, and it's interesting, but we also know that the market, the economy, there is a result.
it's not supposed to be a result, but there is something you can see.
Yeah.
In the festivals. There, each of the artists have crafted a sort of 20-minute prototype.
Okay, so we're always in those questions of what can we share, what do we show, what do we choose to hide also, perhaps, what is made visible, and also considering the rules of the market and the reality of the market, because as you say also, Delphine, the idea is also to be able to live from our creation. So perhaps we can open also to audiences and perhaps to this question of how do we share. I don't know if one of you want to start on this topic. Do you want to read or perhaps, yeah? Delphine brought us a beautiful text on audiences. I will let you perhaps introduce the context.
I will introduce the context, and I will be reading from my phone, I'm sorry. I didn't have time to print it. Just to explain, I went to see the show of a show in Avignon, and I was sat down next to of Chloé Moglia and Maëlle Poésie. And I was sat down next to a man, and we saw the whole show together. And we started chatting for some reason. I don't know. He was particularly nice. And he said, I've seen every show in Avignon in the Festival Inn since for the last 15 years. And I went, what? And he's just an audience member. He's not a professional. He's not an artist. He's not into the. He's actually working as a headmaster in a high school in Brittany. He's called Daniel Le Gohan. And he was approached by Jérôme Bel to write his experience as a spectator and to share that in the Cours d'Avignon, in the Cours d'Honneur d'Avignon. So there was something quite special about the way he. So he actually even bought a house next to Avignon so that he can see all the shows. So, and why I found this piece so interesting? It's about 13 pages. I'm not going to read the 13 pages. Don't worry. I'll read a very short extract, but I'm giving you the context. Is because we all are concerned about whom we're sharing our works with for very good reasons, artistic reasons, human connections, financial reasons, I mean, all of that. And we're all wondering who will watch what we do. And I thought it was very interesting, and I sometimes, as a pedagogue, I share some of this text to the artists I accompany, because we sometimes forget that as an audience, we see everything. And when we put ourselves in the shoe of someone who is watching a show, everything makes some sense. And sometimes we're looking for a writing in our pieces, and actually the audience has written something else in their minds. And so to have this relationship in between what people see, or this awareness of what people see and how we are making it a dialogue, I found interesting. So I'll read just a short extract of a piece that he saw. He saw many pieces, and for those who are interested, I'm sure we can provide the whole text. Sorry about that, I will go into it very quickly. So the show, I will read it both in French and English, and what I will do, if that's all right with you, is I'll do translation as I go along, not read the whole thing, and if I can find the text, obviously. Sorry, it's not very, very audience-friendly what I'm doing.
But there was a show by Jérôme Bel that played in Avignon where it was called Cours d'Honneur, and what it was spectators coming on stage and telling about their experiences of shows they have seen in Avignon. And some of their experiences were traumatized, some of them were overwhelmed, some of them it was their first experience. And so, as usual in the shows by Jérôme Bel, it is very written, the dramaturgy is very precise, all the gestures, the words, but in a way it was also giving the floor to the audiences about their experience of the stage, and it was really interesting.
Yeah. And so this experience I've chosen to share is the one when he saw the show Child by Boris Chermatz. Donc lorsque le spectacle Enfant de Boris Chermatz s'ouvre à la nuit tombée sur la cour d'honneur en 2011, when the show Child by Boris Chermatz opens, when the night is falling in the cour d'honneur in 2011, adult bodies are laying on the floor. Des corps adultes jonchent le sol. Sont-ils endormis? Are they asleep? Sont-ils morts? Are they dead? Of course they're dead. Bien sûr qu'ils sont morts. Des corps endormis se réveillent et ceux-là sont inertes et ont besoin d'être réanimés. Some sleeping bodies are waking up and these ones are laying with lifeless and need to be animated. Il y a donc, semble-t-il, pas de vie sur la scène. So it seems there is no life on stage. Yes, there is. La grue se met en branle. How do you say la grue in English? The crane, thank you so much. The crane starts to move. The crane moves its head. La grue se lève la tête, se tourne à gauche et à droite. It turns right, it turns left. It looks at us almost. Elle nous regarde presque. It is the only alive being on stage at the beginning. Is the world exterminated? C'est le seul être vivant de la scène au départ. Le monde s'est-il exterminé? Is the world dehumanized so that only a machine can appear as alive? Est-ce que le monde s'est déshumanisé pour que seule une machine puisse apparaître comme vivante? Avons-nous laissé les humains s'exterminer? Have we let humans be exterminated? Est-ce alors à nos enfants que nous demandons de nous sauver? Is it for our children then to save us? Et tout ça part du fait que le titre véhicule déjà énormément de sens. Donc le spectateur rentre et dit enfant. The audience members enters with the word child in his mind, and then he sees only adult bodies. That's it. I just wanted to share that. So, because we have a machine of narratives, we keep narrating things for ourselves. So sometimes very little happening on stage is a lot for an audience member.
I don't know if on this idea of audiences, if you want to share also experiments, or because it's part also of the job of being an artist to sometimes discuss with audiences. So an author's approach is also a dialogue with audiences. You always are in this dialogue. And in a way, how do you want to meet them? How do we meet them? What are the conditions in which we meet audiences? So I don't know if you want to talk about this. But well, how this question of audiences is presenting you the way you work, perhaps, and the ways you want to relate also to audience, you want to meet them, and how also can we, in changing processes of writing shows, of sharing shows, how this also is a question.
Yeah. For me, the audience is the most important. Even if I decide to do something completely extreme, it's my work to find a way to get to them. I don't want to ask to them to be more intelligent, because me, I am artist. It's my work as an artisan, a crafter, to find the tricks to and transform my complicated mind in something accessible. Or it's better that I don't show what I do. If you decide that you need people watching you, it's my work to find the key. Yeah, and of course it depends also where you perform. Sometimes you perform in a street festival, places for free, where the audience is every kind of audience, it's not theater audience. And there are a specific language based sometimes on strength, on work, that get to all the people. There's some other kind of arts that are a bit more tricky to get to everybody. But personally, I want to, I always say, if I get to my mother, I will get to everybody. So if my mother like what I do, I'm okay. It's my reference for even in something super hardcore or extreme stuff. But yeah. Well.
But you were saying, Antonia, when you were talking about the hand-to-hand project, that those workers that you had met in Croatia, they were not specifically circus audiences, and you said, but how could they, in a way, become also part of this being? Because there is, there is a lot of social reason, of course, but in a way, isn't it the responsibility also of artists, presenters, to, as Claudio said, find the keys so that contemporary art is not identified as something floating in the clouds and not accessible for anyone. And it can be complex and artistically deep and experimental still.
I mean, it's a complex question. I think there is kind of shared responsibility between the artists to actually really know for whom they are creating. For example, like I recently started working with students, and they so easily answer the question for whom this performance it is, and they say, for everybody. I mean, it's not for everybody, and like I think there is I'm not really a right person to speak anything in relation with circus education, but just working with emerging artists, I think there is a much bigger thoughtful thinking that has to be done before deciding for whom you are writing this piece or for whom you are performing it. Then I think there is a responsibility, a bigger responsibility on producer of like festival organizers to understand for whom they are doing their festival. Is it for themselves, which is nice, or it's actually for the audience, and then to find where their audience is. For example, like the next edition of festival that we are doing is changing again. And I know that it's, for most of my colleagues, it's always a shock when they learn the festival is always in different time and in different place. And you don't have this tradition. But for me, I don't care about that tradition. I care about finding my audience. And for this edition in April, because there is no venues in the city, which is a long story, never mind. But actually what we are doing is that we are moving from the more center position to the outskirts of the city, because there is a majority of population living there. It will be super nice to be in the city center because it's more convenient and the landscapes are nicer. But actually there is no people. So why to create a festival which is for large audience, it's not specific, when there is nobody there? So what we are doing as an organizer, that we are taking the responsibility to finding the audience, and then we are co-writing with hand-to-hand artists their prototypes to fit our particular propositions. And I think this is the thing that sometimes festivals are created without thinking deeply about the audience. And this particular situation in Croatia with the residency in this little town of Ston was a reminder that majority of population is actually not our audience. And there is like some very bizarre small percentage, like 2% of people actually being part of a cultural life. So there is much more responsibility on the festivals or like producers of cultural seasons to find where the audience is and to come to the audience and not expect that the audience comes to them. And I think there is these places are like something that is not so research, and there is a lot of possibilities in the writing for the creative Europe, and finding really a good funding to actually a circus which is already on a periphery of performing arts, to find their audience that is also on the periphery of performing arts audience, like really to find a connection.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's really interesting to have this reflection on centers and peripheries also in the way we work, the way we address our works, the way we look at works, and perhaps this will be also something we will discuss this afternoon. Time runs a little bit, of course, as usual, so I don't know if you have anything that you want to add on what we have discussed so far. We talked about how do we learn, how do we unlearn, and I think the question of schools and how people are trained was also something underlying our discussion, because of course schools create norms and it's difficult afterwards to unlearn what we have learned in schools. Perhaps we could open also a little bit, we don't have a lot of time, but to the audience, if you're okay with this, if they have questions, or if you're already too hungry to have questions, which is possible. Thank you for the light. It's never an obligation, huh? No, I think because you were so excellent speakers, no one has questions. Well, Jarko. No, it's okay.
Do you think, again, personal artistic question, not a general one. Do you think that it is a prerequisite to know the history of the art form to be able to create something new?
You have 2 hours to discuss this.
To be honest, in short, I think no. No, I don't think so. I think there's no prerequisite to creation. Then how the person who creates is accompanied in his or her work. And the interesting thing about knowing, I find it's not only about knowing the history of art, it's about living, and it's about knowing all forms of arts, and being in tune with something of the creation of not knowing what you're going to do next. It can be interesting to know things. It can be burdening to know things.
I can share what is going on in Room 100 Collective, because there is Jakov, who is never there. I think majority of people don't know that he exists. This is my colleague and me. And this is a big topic between two of us, because he doesn't want to see anything. And when I asked him, and because I had this very romantic idea that we were shared traveling between two of us, and that the selection for the festival will be between two of us, and he never wants to travel. And when I asked him, why you don't want to travel and see other people, and I'm still an artist. I will still like to create a circus performance, and I don't want to be contaminated with other people's great ideas, which I think is very valid. Then on the other hand is me, that is seeing a lot of things and is trying to see as majority of things. And then when he started creating, because we are now in the process of creation, I'm like a corrective for him if he is proposing something that has been done before or is too similar. So I think it can be done in this way, but I agree with Delphine that it can be a burden to know too much. But my personal opinion, really like me, that you have to know too much to be an artist today. And I think it's a good thing. And sometimes when I'm speaking with emerging artists, I'm like trying to push them in the direction, but don't go see only circus performance. Go see everything, a graphic, comic exhibition, crazy experimental performance of 12 hours. Like really try to get as much different inspiration there it is for you. But I don't know what is the right, let's see what is the right answer to this.
Claudio, do you want to add something? Everything agrees, it's wonderful, but there is we talked about Boris Charmat's Enfant, child, and in one of his books that is called Je suis une école, I am a school, he says the training of a dancer is not only about dancing, it's also about going to the museum. And perhaps it's more about going to the museum. So I think it's also how do we move borders of what do we need to know and what is the legitimate knowings and know-hows, and what are the ones that you also learn from your experience in different field? Conclusion.
Just a quick thing, because I think the title at the beginning was the interplay between the construction of authors' artistic identities and the development of new writings. And I think authors' artistic identities, if we take that as a prerequisite, I think it's how you build yourself as a human. So it's who you are as a human. And the more I grow older, not so much, but just a bit, you know, the more I'm interested in people and other people and how they live and how I live and how we interconnect and what will be exciting for us to share together. Because I like people, but even if I didn't like people, it's like who I am as a person. It's like, and it's more mysterious, and we don't really know the contours of it. But of course, everything that feeds us can be good, whatever it is.
Well, thank you very much, all of you. And I was thinking that as an art teacher, I'm always asking my students to give some references. And what are your references? And you need to see things and situate yourself in an art history, and I think now that it's totally unnecessary, so I will stop doing this. And yeah, and this is the conclusion of the round table. No, no, but it's more about being able to have tools to bring a critical response also to institutions and to other people watching, because this is what we are trying to build also if we talk about unlearning. Any words of conclusion from one of you, or? Yes, Claudio, you have the mic. You need to conclude. So
lunch is ready, I think.
Lunch is ready. I think Asma has a few last words to say. So thank you, everyone, and thank you to all three of you for the discussion. Thank you.